This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this.
Welcome everyone to the X-Cast. The truth is in here. I'm your host, Sarah Blair, and welcome back to I Want to Believe Minute, where we are examining the second X-Files movie 1 minute at a time. Today we are diving into minute 54, which runs from approximately 53 minutes on the dot, as Scully is asking Mulder to look at himself. Look at yourself, Mulder.
Look at your gorgeous shaved face, Mulder.
Oh, yeah.
One of these many mirrors, I guess, that are somewhere in this locker room.
Somewhere in the locker room.
Yes.
And it runs to 53 minutes and 59 seconds. Scully says that she has her own battles to fight. And here to talk about it with me is our regular guest to the X-Cast, an artist extraordinaire, JJ Lendl. JJ.
Hello, folks.
You've had quite a makeover.
Yes, I am in a full Victorian garment here, and I'm wearing full. My hair is now in a beehive, which is how you had yours a couple of weeks ago, as I recall. Back when we recorded that. Because we're not recording all this on the same day. Why would we do that?
That doesn't make sense. No.
Why would you record a bunch of stuff and then release it over a longer period of time? That'd be that makes a lot of sense, actually. Start doing it. Oh.
That's not how podcasts work at all, JJ.
And even if we were doing that, I feel like this has been a long time coming to get to this particular minute of this scene. It's really nice that, you know, the minutes that you and I are discussing for the show, you know, make up this really just this one very emotionally fraught scene, this conversation. So it's really cool to be able to break it apart bit by bit. And I feel like this is we're hitting the climax of the scene here in this, which is pretty great.
Yeah. This is like where it all drives home.
This is where the wheels come off.
Exactly. They're like screeching around the
there.
corner. The wheels are off. Scully is throwing down the gauntlet. Just laying it out there for him.
But this is real. You know, this is, we talked during the last episode about the motivations for Scully's perspective and how, like, in some ways they make a lot of sense in the context of her journey, and then in some ways they feel a little like, I don't know, callous, because it's like, don't save these women's lives. You know, that's shouldn't be your priority. But I think it's really, you know, a lot of members of the fan community for so long wanted to see these two together. This is what a real relationship looks like. There are cracks that form, especially with personalities like Mulder's and Scully's. They have very strong personalities, and, you know, they're going to have these kind of conflicts, and there's going to be cracks in that, you know, in that foundation. So I think that this is a really, you know, this is the dark side of being a shipper. Like, if you want a relationship, relationships are messy. They're not all happily ever after.
Well, I think you make a good point there, because part of, I think, what makes it so much fun to be a shipper is the angstiness. And, you know, when these conflicts do come up and they butt heads like this, but at the end, you know, like, are they going to they're going to stay, they're together finally, and now are they going to stay together? And there's like that tug of war with your heart. And it's just, you know, so dramatic, because conflict is drama. And this is
Absolutely.
the greatest. Is it such a good relationship conflict? Because they're both valid in what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. There's validity to both of their arguments.
Yeah.
I might argue that there's a little more validity,
I,
given the stakes, to Mulder's argument at the moment.
But they're both trying to save lives.
Absolutely, yes.
You know,
absolutely.
So in just their own way. So,
yes.
You know,
but
yeah.
Before we get into the dialogue, I do want to mention something, because there's another bit. You know, there's a part of this movie that kind of I think it's one of those parts of the movie that's a little underdeveloped, and it's the Amanda Peet character. And, you know, the movie kind of half-assed, to be honest, sets her up as like perhaps this alternative to Scully for Mulder, which I think is something that the movie never really takes enough time and effort to develop. But it's interesting to think of that in the context of this scene and the fact that it doesn't play into it at all. Because I think that even setting that up is a little, I don't know what word I want to use, insulting to the relationship, to think that Fox Mulder would, you know, this random, you know, FBI agent that's kind of telling him what he wants to hear in terms of investigating, would in any way hold a fraction of a candle to Dana Scully is kind of silly. So I always felt like that was a real oddball part of this movie. Just in the fact that it existed, and the fact that it is so underdeveloped and doesn't really kind of go anywhere. And I think that this scene, if you think about it, is a really great demonstration of how it is so a non-issue in the movie, because it doesn't come up here. Like, this would be, if you're going to talk about, you know, perhaps some sort of chemistry going on with somebody else, this is the scene that it would happen in, right? And it absolutely does not. Not even a little bit.
Not even close. Yeah. One of the things that I really like about this particular section of this scene is, you know, because we're specifically looking at 1 minute at a time, there's almost a good chunk, there's like 15-20 seconds of Mulder just not saying anything.
Yeah. So yeah, when you look at the transcript of the lines that are uttered in this scene, there are very few over the course of this minute. There's like 9 lines between the two characters. And because there's so much kind of beats and silence that they take, because they're just sort of letting these moments sit. And I think the scene is so much better because of it. And this is, as we were watching this scene, and then I rewatched it, I was like, okay, so this minute of the film I will call the home minute of the film, because Scully says the word home about 17 times over the course of this 1 minute of film.
Yeah.
She says, you know, what is like, you know, we're two people who come home at night to a home. I don't want darkness in my home. And it's just like, yes, we know that you're not on house. That's great. But, you know, not to be flippant, she's trying to point out the idea that things have changed in our situation here. And the way that you're behaving right now, Mulder, is very like, you know, Mulder, this is very season 5 of you right now. Like,
oh my God, yes.
Getting season 5 vibes from you.
Yeah.
And this is like the epilogue movie, man. Like, we need to move past this attitude, okay? And you know, I think Mulder's argument in this minute is a good one, which is like, this is me. Like, have you met me? Like, have I ever given you any indication that I would act differently in this situation? I don't know that Scully has a really good comeback to that.
The implication that, you know, when he says, I haven't changed, it's, you know, that silent, but you have. And you're
that
different.
The unsaid, yeah. I don't think I'm the one who's changed. And it's so interesting, because that could be read in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
From Scully's perspective, it's like, okay, I know you're saying that in a way where like you've changed, but it's like, no, that's not a bad thing,
Right.
Mulder, that I've changed. It wouldn't
Yeah.
be a bad thing if you changed. In fact, that is what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to change, sir.
Yeah.
But you are seeing that as a negative. And that's like, I mean, I think that's the real conflict here, where, for Scully, she wants this relationship and this life of theirs to evolve. And the whole time, Mulder has been like, yeah, I want it to evolve back to the good times where this is what you wanted, right? And it's just
Yeah.
like very clear in this minute. It's like, no, you totally missed my point with all of this. And I see Mulder's perspective is that, you, again, like we said in the last minute, like, you want me to get back on the horse, right? And it's like, not this horse, a different horse, a horse with me.
Yeah.
Uh,
At our
and,
home where we live and we are
right, in our
together
home,
and we
the
are building
place.
a life that we fought so hard to get at this,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And of course, like at the end of this minute, it goes from where she says home the final time, but in the context or in the context of, I won't be coming home if you continue to go down this path. And whoa, is that like that's a big swing
Yeah.
in a domestic conversation like this. Like, it felt a little bit like she was going from, 0 to 80 in a very
Right.
short period of time. I don't know. What
Yeah.
did you think of that? Did you feel like that's a big thing to say to your partner?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, it really is. And, she means it too. It's not just, the way she says it is, like, wow, okay. So this is
yeah,
where we're going with this. This is
yeah.
the,
It's like, I
the
can live at the hospital. I can Google things here. I've got a
right.
printer that can print tons of stuff out. It's all I need. I'll sleep in the
Mm-hmm.
chair.
Right. She's got a shower
That's right.
right
Yeah.
there.
Though we didn't get a scene in which
So
she used it,
no.
unfortunately. But we must assume that they're functional.
Right.
Um,
According to Chris Carter, it is like a 40-year-old shower, like a really old shower.
oh, really?
Like,
And I
yeah.
see. I didn't listen to this commentary, but the fact that they're discussing how old the shower is, it
Mm-hmm.
must be pretty in depth.
Mm-hmm.
I
So that's
uh
actually the next minute, so we'll save that.
okay, sorry. We're jumping
Spoiler
ahead, folks.
alert.
We're getting into the shower.
Yeah, but no, like Sully like really throws it down here, and it kind of makes you wonder what kind of position she feels like she's in to have to result to that as
Yeah.
a choice. And yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of this, I think that there's a real shift at one point for Scully in the movie. The phrase "call to adventure," like the
Mm-hmm.
kind of hero's journey stuff.
Yeah.
There's a very specific call to adventure in this movie for Mulder. Literally like, hey, I'm calling you to go on this adventure where you're helping us investigate this disappearance, this kidnapping. And I almost feel like there is a call to disadventure for Scully, and it is the moment that she meets Father Joe. I feel like when she meets him, it flips this switch,
Mm.
and it's almost like, she was along for the ride. Okay, I'm going to come along. And as soon as she meets this man who has taken, the calling and the faith that she takes so seriously and so personally, and has done with it what he has, which is hurt these innocent children, it's almost like this isn't fun anymore. Like, this is dark. This is complicated, and it's like she completely checks out at that point. And I think that he's really messing with her. And I think a lot of the dialogue that we're seeing here in this scene, you got to think that that guy is in the back of her head and is kind of motivating a lot of this ire that she's that she is, obviously she's been feeling this way for a while when it comes to their relationship and being on the same page. But I really feel like he's such a catalyst for her to like bring these feelings to the surface and make them so raw.
And how much of that do you think could be related to the fact that, she's also got William in her mind because of the little boy that she's trying to help? And, she says that he reminds her of William, or, she's got him in her head too. And, sure. As a mom, as a parent, thinking about what this priest has done and kind of putting your own, like, what would you do if that was your child that happened to? And what would you do? She's what would she do if her child was sick and needed help? And right. So she's got that going on in her head too, I think. So I think that's a really good point that you make, because, maybe that's what she means by the darkness, and she doesn't want that, and she doesn't want that anymore. She doesn't want to have those villains to come sure. into their home and into their relationship, and she wants to move past that.
Right. And I that's the William of it all is so complicated, because I feel like within Mulder and Scully's relationship, and this goes into the revival too, which at this point doesn't exist. Yeah. But there's this kind of animosity between Mulder and Scully about William, and Scully seems to, at least on the outside, she just feels more about that loss, more openly. And whereas Mulder, he talks about the loss. He talks about it in the film even. But he doesn't seem to wear it on his sleeve. But again, we've got all these parallels in this movie, and you've got, you've got the hole that William has left, but then you've got this older hole for Mulder, which is Samantha, which is something that the movie suggests that he is still grappling with, regardless of whether you call the episode that ended that closure. He's still got her picture at the center of his weird conspiracy, door.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's a lot of phantom children that occupy space in this movie. Mm-hmm. And it seems like Mulder is very mission oriented when it comes to this. And he's like, I can ignore the fact that this guy is a pedophile. I can ignore a lot of things in order to stay focused on my objective, which is to try and, save lives. And Scully, it just feels like she's having a much harder time staying focused on that objective, because she doesn't feel like it's her objective. She feels like it's the FBI's objective. And Mulder, for ironically, like, the the status of him as a fugitive from the FBI seems to really relate to the FBI a lot more than Scully does at this point, which again it's just this really clear break between the two of them that you feel like, I guess this just hasn't come up for them until this moment, like, because there hasn't been this kind of stress on their relationship over the last few years, because I think Mulder's just been sitting in that room. Yes.
What do you think?
Newspapers.
What do you think their domestic life looks like at this point? Like, I don't know. Scully coming home. Who cooks dinner? Does Mulder cook dinner? I don't know. Do they get take?
I think they're getting
bring takeout every night. Yeah. She brings it home.
Yes.
She's probably doing like long shifts at the hospital, so she's probably not even home every night. Mulder probably has like microwave dinners, or
at like 3 a.m.
He's out squatching when she's gonna do like a double shift.
He's got a lot of great squatching acreage around there.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked to have actually seen more of that domestic life, because I think the movie is, frankly, the movie is a little gun shy about Mulder and Scully's relationship until the moment that you see them in bed together. Rewatching the movie, I don't think that it's clear that Scully even lives in that house she goes in, because when she walks in, it feels like she, just from her body language and the look on her face, doesn't feel like she's walking into her own home. It feels like she's visiting a friend. And I think that it's again, when I talk about these pendulum shifts in this movie, you've got this crazy pendulum shift where the relationship is a little bit murky in the opening scenes, and then suddenly it's like, oh,
yeah,
okay, so they are together.
So how much of that do you think is due to the fact that they wanted the shock value of that? They wanted that to be a surprise.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I don't know if that it's one of those things where, does that benefit the film? Does that benefit the story? Mm-hmm. And does that play on repeat viewings? Of course it doesn't. Like, that really is, it's like the George W. Bush moment. Yeah. Where it's just bizarre. I mean, it was bizarre then, but it's just even more bizarre now because we're completely out of that cultural context. To say nothing of the fact that, they're sort of trying to play on the idea that, oh, wow, things have changed. It's like, guys, you forgot. You went off the air in 2002. Bush had been president for over a year. Yeah. When he went off the air. Yeah. There's a deleted scene at the end of the series featuring the character of George W. Bush. But that's not in our minute that we're discussing. But I do think that it's emblematic of some choices in the movie. I think, they create these moments, but I don't know that they serve the overarching story as well. And I really would like to have seen a little bit more of, if you're going to break something up, you need to see it together.
That's a great point.
And we don't really get to see that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Even something as small as maybe Scully coming in, and like dropping her keys in a spot where like hang them on a hook or put them in the key dish by the door.
Anything that would define it as her space. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like putting her shoes in a special spot or, yeah.
Right. And honestly, like this moment where she's talking about home, 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 for me was the first actual indication that they do live together. Because you could just assume, I guess she spent the night at Mulder's shack and she might have a condo, somewhere closer to civilization, which ironically, when you think of the revival, is kind of the situation that ended up happening there. So I think that even further confuses things for me to think about where they would end up after this movie. So yeah,
it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention about this scene is, and this is something that my wife thought was funny, is that Scully's sort of her answer to Mulder's this is ingrained in who I am. This is my actual person. And she's like, I'll put it in a book. I don't know. Maybe write a book. It's just
write a book.
Okay. Maybe write a book. I don't know.
Sign it Reynard Muldrake. That'll be
there. You go.
Name. Yeah.
Perfect. But again, I think that sort of supports the idea that, Scully's sort of end game in this whole thing might have been just let's get you off the lam, sir, so that you can actually I don't know, have a life and not be in hiding. I think that might be a good move for us. Yeah. Both collectively and you as a person. So
right. And she does feel really tired. She's just so tired.
Yes.
Of all the things. Poor Scully. She's worn out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mulder, he's more alive in this scene than, I mean, obviously he's tired, but he's activated. This is kind of where
best at.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. And is it fair for Scully to basically say, I know that you like this, but if you just could not, that would be really great for me.
Yeah.
And then I could be a doctor, and then you could be write a book.
Yeah.
I don't know.
How much of it though is her saying that she doesn't want him to do it at all, or how much of her saying that she just doesn't want to do it herself? Like, do you get the feeling that if he wanted to continue this case and continue pursuing this stuff, do you think just on his own without her, do you think?
No, I think she's asking him, she's very explicitly asking him to let it go. And I think she's referring to the case. Her entire argument is, you fulfilled your obligation. You don't have to do anything else with this case. Of course, I'm not going to help you, but my ask is not for you to leave me alone. My ask is for you to stop. I need you to stop. Because as long as he's working on this case, that, amorphous darkness has a way in to their home. And I think that it's very clear to me, at least, that what she's asking him to do is to walk away from the investigation, and to walk away from these types of investigations in the future. Like, she's basically saying, that thing that, I trained to be a doctor. You trained to be, to do psychological profiles and to investigate and all this stuff. I want to keep being a doctor. I need you to stop doing the thing that you like to do, though. Okay?
Yeah.
So are we good? Go home and you start writing that book, man. Okay?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. When you think of it from, obviously it's more complicated. When you think of it from that perspective, it's like, ooh, I don't know if that's a great look.
Right. Yeah. I mean, she's frustrated. So
yeah. Clearly, yeah.
That's why this is it's so good. Like, from a drama point of view.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much.
And you see how frustrated he is in this scene, because he's kind of like just dumbfounded with what she's asking him to do. By the end of the minute, I think that the last thing that he says to her in this particular minute of film, is it's just like Scully saying, I won't be coming home. And he's just like, Scully, like, how did we...
Like, damn, girl, yeah.
How did we get here? Things were good in minute 51. How did we get here in minute 54? How did it happen? So, and I feel like, the lines have been drawn in this scene, and all that's left is to figure out who's going to cross them, which of course takes us to
minute 55 coming up.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So we shall return for our last minute with JJ in minute 55. But until then, always remember, trust no one.